Tomatoes are one of the most popular and healthy foods that we often add to our dishes for rich flavor and freshness. But did you know that some combinations with tomatoes can become a real threat to your health and even endanger your life? In this video, we will tell you about the 10 most dangerous combinations with tomatoes that can cause serious diseases. You will learn how familiar dishes with tomatoes, combined with certain foods, can cause problems, from liver and stomach diseases to diabetes and obesity. Simple mistakes that we often overlook can subtly undermine your health. Watch the video to the end to learn which combinations to avoid and how to protect yourself from dangerous consequences. This video will be extremely informative and helpful. So, if you want to become a master of your health, click like, and let's get started. Mistake 10. Never eat tomatoes with eggs. It can cause diseases such as gastritis, abdominal bloating, and inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract. At first glance, the combination of tomatoes and eggs seems perfect for breakfast or a light dinner. However, this combination can lead to unpleasant effects on the digestive system. Tomatoes contain a lot of acid, which, when combined with eggs, can irritate the gastric mucosa and disrupt digestion. Consumption of this combination on a regular basis can provoke gastritis and abdominal bloating. In people with a sensitive gastrointestinal tract, this combination can cause inflammation and lead to chronic problems. This combination can be found in several popular dishes. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes is a classic breakfast option. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes and herbs, shakshuka, a dish in which tomatoes and eggs play a major role. Pizza with tomato sauce and eggs, salad with eggs and tomatoes, and a variety of casseroles all contain this combination. According to a study by the National Institute on Aging, regular consumption of acidic foods such as tomatoes combined with animal proteins, especially eggs, increases the risk of developing gastritis and irritation of the gastric mucosa by 30%. Researchers have found that tomato acid disrupts the enzymes responsible for digesting proteins, which slows down the digestive process and contributes to gastric irritation. A real-life example of the consequences of poor diet was the case of Sarah Williams, a 39-year-old resident of San Diego, California. Sarah often cooked herself scrambled eggs with tomatoes for breakfast, considering it a healthy and easy dish. Over time, she began to have stomach problems, constant bloating and pain after eating. When she went to the doctor, she learned that she was developing gastritis caused by regular consumption of acidic foods, combined with animal proteins such as eggs. How to avoid this mistake? Try to minimize the consumption of tomatoes along with eggs. Instead, use less acidic vegetables, such as spinach or sweet peppers, to make omelets and other dishes with eggs. You should also add more fiber-rich foods, which can help improve digestion and prevent stomach problems. By the way, grateful people who give likes live longer by an average of 7 to 10 years compared to indifferent or haters. Read the study in the description below the video. Mistake 9. Never eat tomatoes with red meat. This can cause atherosclerosis, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. The combination of tomatoes and red meat, for example in steaks or kebabs, at first glance, may seem appetizing and healthy. However, this combination carries a serious threat to the cardiovascular system. Fatty red meat, especially if cooked with tomato sauce, increases the level of bad cholesterol in the blood. Tomatoes, although useful in their own right when combined with a lot of fat from meat, increase its absorption into the bloodstream. This, in turn, leads to the formation of cholesterol plaques on the walls of blood vessels, which over time can trigger atherosclerosis, high blood pressure, and other serious heart and vascular problems. These foods are often found in many people's favorite dishes. For example, steaks with tomato sauce is an American classic that looks harmless. Tomato kebabs are a popular dish at picnics. Lasagna with red meat and tomato sauce, fajitas with beef and tomatoes, and stuffed tomatoes with meat can all become hidden dangers to your health if consumed regularly. According to a study conducted by the National Institute on Aging, regular consumption of fatty red meat combined with foods that increase fat metabolism, such as tomatoes, increases the risk of atherosclerosis by 40%. Researchers have found that it is in combination with fatty foods that tomatoes can promote accelerated lipid absorption, which negatively affects cardiovascular health. A striking example of the negative impact of such a combination was the case of Robert Williams, a 55-year-old resident of Dallas, Texas. Robert, as a big meat lover, often cooked steaks with tomato sauce for dinner. However, after several years of this diet, he was diagnosed with hypertension and the beginning signs of atherosclerosis. The doctor explained that regular consumption of red meat in combination with tomatoes accelerated the accumulation of bad cholesterol in his body, which led to damage to the walls of blood vessels. How to avoid this mistake? First of all, try to limit the consumption of fatty red meat combined with tomatoes. If you cannot give up these dishes completely, choose lean cuts of meat and reduce the amount of tomato sauce. Add more fiber-rich foods to your diet, such as vegetables, which can reduce fat absorption. Mistake 8. Never eat tomatoes with sausages or sausages. It can cause cancer and liver damage. Tomatoes and sausage is a popular combination in dishes like pizza or hot dogs, but few people think about the health risks it can pose. The problem is that the preservatives and additives used in sausages and frankfurters react chemically with the acid in tomatoes. This reaction increases inflammation in the body and creates conditions for the formation of carcinogens, which can lead to serious liver problems and even the development of cancer. These products can be found in a huge number of favorite dishes. Pizza with sausage and tomato sauce is one of the most common dishes in the world. Hot dogs with ketchup, baked sausages with tomato sauce, grilled sausages with tomato sauce, and classic sausage and tomato sandwiches all contain this insidious combination that can cause irreparable damage to your health. According to a study by the American Federation for Aging Research, regularly eating sausage with acidic foods like tomatoes increases your risk of developing liver cancer by 32%. Researchers found that preservatives in sausage products combine with tomato acids to form toxic compounds that have a devastating effect on liver cells, causing them to mutate and become damaged. An example of the negative effects of such a diet was Michael Thompson, a 51-year-old New Yorker. Michael was fond of hot dogs and pizza for many years, considering these dishes ideal for a quick snack. However, after a few years, he began experiencing pain in his right side and chronic fatigue. After an examination, he was diagnosed with severe liver damage. Doctors explained that the cause of his problems was his habit of regularly eating sausages with tomatoes, which led to liver damage and the risk of developing cancer. How to avoid this mistake? Limit your consumption of sausages combined with tomatoes. Instead, replace them with more natural sources of protein, such as chicken or fish. And if you have a hard time giving up these foods, try using less offensive ingredients, such as homemade tomato sauce without preservatives or replacing sausages with products with minimal additives. Mistake 7. Never eat tomatoes with fish. It can cause gout and joint inflammation. Tomatoes and fish is a classic combination in the cuisines of many countries, but it can be seriously detrimental to your health. Tomatoes, by increasing the production of uric acid in the body, can combine with fish to cause diseases such as gout and joint inflammation. Fish contains purines, which also increase uric acid levels, and this combination only exacerbates the problem. These foods can be found in popular dishes. Fish in tomato sauce is one of the most common dishes where tomatoes and fish are found. They are also often used in dishes such as tomato soup with fish, salads with tomatoes and fish stew with tomatoes, and seafood pasta. According to the American Federation for Aging Research, frequent consumption of fish and tomatoes increases the risk of gout by 35% and triggers joint inflammation. Scientists concluded that this combination of foods accelerates the accumulation of uric acid in the body, which leads to inflammation and pain in the joints. A striking example of the consequences of such a diet is the story of Richard Miller, a 52-year-old resident of Miami, Florida. Richard ate fish in tomato sauce every day, thinking it was a healthy choice. After a while, he began to suffer from joint pain, and upon examination he was diagnosed with gout. The doctor pointed out that the combination of fish and tomatoes was a key factor in the development of his disease. How to avoid this mistake? Give up combining fish and tomatoes on a regular basis. Replace tomatoes in fish dishes with other vegetables such as zucchini or broccoli. Mistake 6. Never eat tomatoes with coffee. It can cause gastritis, stomach ulcers, and heartburn. Tomatoes for breakfast along with a cup of hot coffee may seem like a delicious and invigorating way to start the day, but this combination carries a hidden threat to stomach health. Coffee, which by itself increases acidity, when combined with tomatoes creates an aggressive environment that irritates the gastric mucosa and provokes serious problems such as gastritis and ulcers. This dangerous combination is often found in the most common dishes. For example, tomatoes served for breakfast as an appetizer to a sandwich often go hand in hand with a cup of coffee. Popular French breakfasts that combine coffee with tomatoes or omelets with tomatoes and coffee are also on this list. Dishes like tomato salads eaten for breakfast and tomato sandwiches served with coffee are just as common. According to a study by the American Federation for Aging Research, regular consumption of coffee, along with acidity-boosting foods like tomatoes, increases the risk of gastritis by 29% and stomach ulcers by 22%. The victim of this combination was a real person, Susan Johnson, a 43-year-old resident of San Francisco, California. She started her day daily with coffee and tomato sandwiches. Over time, Susan began to suffer from constant heartburn and stomach pains. After an examination, she was diagnosed with gastritis, caused by her daily consumption of coffee and tomato sandwiches. The doctor explained that this combination led to irritation of the mucosa and damage to the stomach. How to avoid this mistake? Limit the consumption of coffee along with tomatoes. Try replacing coffee with milder beverages such as herbal teas. Mistake 5. Never eat tomatoes with white bread. This can cause obesity and insulin resistance. At first glance, tomatoes and white bread may seem like an innocent combination. But this combination hides the danger that lurks in the carbohydrate nature of white bread and the effect of tomatoes on the digestive system. These foods are often found in popular dishes. Tomato sandwiches are an easy and quick snack that is a favorite of many. Toast with tomato sauce is a traditional breakfast in many homes. Pizza with tomatoes and crispy white bread crust is one of the most common dishes. Even dishes like bruschetta with tomatoes and basil or classic sandwiches contain this dangerous combination that can be harmful to health if consumed regularly. Simple carbohydrates from white bread are quickly converted into glucose, which provokes the release of insulin to digest it. Tomatoes, despite their health benefits, increase the absorption of these carbohydrates, which, if consumed frequently, can lead to the development of insulin resistance, a condition where the body's cells stop responding to insulin, which increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. According to research from the American Federation for Aging Research, regular consumption of carbohydrates like those found in white bread, combined with metabolic irritants such as tomatoes, increases the risk of obesity and insulin resistance by 42%. An example of the consequences of this poor diet was Tom Johnson, a 39-year-old resident of Chicago, Illinois. Tom started each day with toast with tomatoes and other additives, thinking it was an easy and healthy breakfast. However, after a few years, he began to notice overweight problems and constant fatigue after eating. After seeing a doctor, he was diagnosed with insulin resistance and obesity, which was a result of regularly eating foods high in simple carbohydrates. The doctor noted that his habit of combining white bread with tomatoes exacerbated his metabolic problems, leading to severe health consequences. How to avoid this mistake? First of all, reduce the consumption of white bread in your diet. Replace it with healthier counterparts, such as whole wheat flour or seed-based breads, which are rich in fiber and don't cause blood sugar spikes. Include more protein foods and healthy fats in your diet, which will help maintain normal sugar and insulin levels. Mistake 4. Never eat tomatoes with dairy products, milk, cheese, sour cream, cottage cheese. This can cause kidney stones and digestive disorders. Tomatoes and dairy products are two popular ingredients that are often found together in a variety of dishes, but combining them can cause serious harm to your body. The acid in tomatoes makes it difficult to absorb calcium, which negatively affects kidney health and can contribute to stone formation. When calcium is not properly absorbed, excess calcium deposits in the kidneys in the form of crystals that can eventually turn into stones. In addition, this combination often causes digestive disorders such as abdominal bloating and heartburn, due to the fact that dairy products and tomato acid slow down the digestive process. These foods can be found in a huge number of popular dishes that we often prepare and eat. For example, pizza with cheese and tomato sauce is one of the most common dishes that combines tomatoes and dairy products. Lasagna with tomato sauce and cheese, pasta with tomatoes and cream, cheesecakes with tomatoes, and various salads with tomatoes and sour cream are all examples of combinations that are dangerous to health. According to a study by the National Institute on Aging, regular consumption of tomatoes with dairy products increases the risk of kidney stones by 28%. Researchers found that it is tomato acid that prevents the absorption of calcium from dairy products, which leads to the accumulation of this element in the kidneys and the formation of stones. They also concluded that such combinations negatively affect digestion, provoking bloating and heartburn in people with sensitive digestive systems. The victim of such a combination was Mark Stevens, a 47-year-old resident of Los Angeles, California. Mark loved Italian food and ate pizza with tomato sauce and cheese almost every day. A few years later, he developed kidney problems, and after an examination, doctors discovered kidney stones. They explained that his habit of regularly eating tomatoes with dairy products led to the accumulation of calcium in the kidneys, which caused the disease. How to avoid this mistake? Try to limit the consumption of tomatoes along with dairy products. If you cannot completely give up such dishes, try to use alternatives. For example, replace tomato sauce with vegetable sauces such as spinach or broccoli sauce, which do not interfere with calcium absorption. Mistake 3. Never eat tomatoes with hot spices. This can cause gastritis and stomach ulcers. Tomatoes and hot spices often seem like the perfect pairing for those who love savory dishes with bright flavors. However, this combination hides serious dangers, especially for gastric health. Tomatoes, which are naturally acidic, when combined with spicy spices can cause severe irritation to the gastric mucosa, increasing acidity and leading to painful consequences. This explosive mix can be found in the most popular dishes that spicy food fans adore. For example, spicy tomato paste is a consistent favorite of many, where tomatoes are mixed with sizzling spices. Chili with tomatoes is one of the classic dishes in which tomatoes play a starring role, and spicy spices add intensity to the flavor. Equally popular are dishes such as spicy salsa, pizza with tomatoes and hot peppers, and tomato-based marinades infused with hot spices. According to a study by the American Federation for Aging Research, regular consumption of spicy foods, especially when combined with acidic foods such as tomatoes, increases the risk of developing gastritis by 30% and stomach ulcers by 25%. The real victim of such a dangerous combination was Michael Stevens, a 45-year-old resident of Austin, Texas. Michael adored spicy food and could not imagine his life without tomato paste flavored with plenty of spices. Daily meals included spicy pizza with tomato sauce and Texas-style chili dishes. But over time, he began experiencing burning stomach pains, especially after meals, and constant heartburn. When he went to a gastroenterologist, he was diagnosed with gastritis aggravated by ulcerative lesions. The doctor explained that the combination of acidic tomatoes with aggressive spices corroded his stomach mucosa, which led to such serious consequences. How to avoid this mistake? First, reduce the amount of hot spices in your diet. Replace them with milder spices, such as turmeric or paprika, which give dishes flavor, but do not irritate the stomach. If you can't give up spicy, at least try to reduce the acid level in your dish by replacing tomatoes with more neutral ingredients such as pumpkin or sweet peppers. Mistake 2. Never eat tomatoes with potatoes. It can cause diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and obesity. Potatoes and tomatoes are two favorite ingredients in many dishes, but combining them carries serious health risks. Potatoes, rich in starch, are converted into glucose when digested, which can cause blood sugar levels to spike. At the same time, the acid in tomatoes can slow down the digestive process, which increases the load on the pancreas. Regular consumption of this combination can lead to the development of insulin resistance, increasing the risk of metabolic syndrome and even diabetes. These foods are often found in popular dishes that we love. For example, pizza with potatoes and tomato sauce is an unexpected but common combination. Fried potatoes with ketchup is a fast food favorite. Also on the list, potato casseroles with tomatoes, mashed potatoes with tomato sauce, and potato fritters served with tomato sauce. All these dishes may sound appetizing, but eating them regularly is dangerous for your body. According to a study conducted by the Life Extension Foundation, regular consumption of starchy foods combined with acidity-boosting foods like tomatoes increases your risk of developing diabetes by 25%. Researchers concluded that this combination makes carbohydrates harder to digest, leading to blood sugar spikes and overloading the pancreas. This can contribute to metabolic disorders and obesity. An example of the harm of such a diet is the story of Linda Johnson, a 43-year-old resident of Denver, Colorado. Linda, working in an office, ate potatoes with tomato sauce in different variations every day, thinking it was a convenient and tasty food. Over time, she began to experience symptoms such as chronic fatigue and weight gain. After going to the doctor, she was diagnosed with the early stages of type 2 diabetes. The doctor explained that her habit of combining starchy foods with tomatoes led to pancreatic malfunction and metabolic problems. How to avoid this mistake? Avoid combining starchy foods with tomatoes. If you find it difficult to give up your favorite foods, try replacing potatoes with less starchy vegetables such as zucchini or cauliflower. Also avoid tomato sauces with potato dishes, replacing them with less acidic alternatives to keep your pancreas healthy and prevent metabolic disorders. Finally, the most important item on our list. Mistake 1. Never eat tomatoes with alcohol. It can cause liver disease, hypertension, and stomach ulcers. The combination of tomatoes and alcohol may seem harmless, especially in popular drinks like the Bloody Mary cocktail. However, this insidious combination carries serious health risks. Alcohol intensifies the effects of the acids in tomatoes, which can irritate the gastric mucosa and aggravate digestive problems. Consumption of these foods together also puts additional strain on the liver, slowing down its work to remove toxins from the body. Constant consumption of alcohol with tomatoes can lead to stomach ulcers, hypertension, and severe liver disease. These foods can be found in many popular dishes and drinks. For example, the Bloody Mary is a classic cocktail that many people choose at parties. Also popular are appetizers where tomatoes are served with wine, such as tomato bruschetta. In Italian dishes where wine is combined with tomato sauce for pasta, this dangerous combination may not be noticeable, but it is still harmful. Other examples are various cold appetizers with tomatoes and alcoholic beverages, tomato salads with a glass of wine, or meat stewed with tomatoes and alcohol. According to a study by the American Federation for Aging Research, regular consumption of acidic foods such as tomatoes combined with alcohol increases the risk of liver disease by 30% and stomach ulcers by 25%. Scientists noted that the combination of these foods has a devastating effect on the liver, overloading it with toxins and slowing down the process of their elimination, leading to the accumulation of harmful substances in the body and serious health consequences. The victim of this combination was Jonathan Blake, a 44-year-old resident of Los Angeles, California. Jonathan loved to cook for friends and always chose cocktails with tomato juice, such as Bloody Marys, which seemed harmless to him. However, after a few years, he began suffering from stomach pains and blood pressure problems. After going to the doctor, he was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer and liver damage caused by regular consumption of alcohol combined with tomatoes. How to avoid this mistake? First of all, try not to use alcohol with tomatoes, especially in dishes and cocktails such as Bloody Marys. If you do want to make a dish with tomatoes, choose non-alcoholic drinks that will not increase acidity and irritate the gastric mucosa. Replace alcohol with juices, compotes, or water, which will help avoid negative health consequences.